The royal ship descended quietly onto the lush fields of Earth. A procession of sleek, gleaming crafts lined the skies above as the alien princess, Silara, made her arrival. She was an heir to a powerful monarchy from a distant star system, known for their immense wealth and military might. Her presence on Earth was a rare diplomatic event, something that all of Earth's leaders had been preparing for months. But Silara's attitude upon landing made it clear that she didn't have much respect for humanity or its laws. As she stepped out of her ship, dressed in the regal armor of her people, her piercing eyes scanned the human diplomats who had gathered to meet her. They bowed respectfully, but Silara did not return the gesture. Instead, she smiled faintly, her expression cold, as she waved away the formalities. To her, these humans were a lesser species, beneath her in both culture and stature. The humans, however, had prepared a welcome ceremony, one designed to showcase Earth's finest achievements. Yet, Silara barely glanced at the speeches or the displays of technological advances. She wasn't here for diplomacy, at least not the kind the humans expected. She had her own agenda, and from the moment she set foot on Earth, it was clear she considered the human laws and their customs trivial. Ethan Walter, the human diplomat assigned to oversee the meeting, stepped forward with a warm smile. He was a seasoned negotiator, known for his calm demeanor and ability to find common ground even with the most difficult of visitors. But even Ethan could feel the tension in the air. Silara's superiority was palpable, and it was clear she didn't plan on making things easy. "Princess Silara, welcome to Earth," Ethan said, offering a hand in greeting. Silara didn't take it. "I see you humans still insist on such primitive customs," she remarked coolly, her voice laced with sarcasm. "How quaint." Ethan's smile faltered, but he didn't let it show. "We believe in the value of respect, Princess," he replied evenly. "This meeting is an opportunity for both our species to understand each other better." Silara tilted her head, studying him with narrowed eyes. "Understand? How quaint. You expect me to abide by your rules and laws, like some obedient subject?" she asked, the challenge in her words clear. "I come from a lineage that controls empires. Your laws are nothing but whispers in the dark compared to the strength of my people." Ethan's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced. This wasn't the first time he had dealt with arrogance from foreign dignitaries, but something about Silara's tone and presence was different. He knew the stakes were high. A diplomatic failure could cause irreparable damage to Earth's reputation across the galaxy. "Princess, I assure you, Earth's laws are not to be taken lightly," Ethan said, trying to steer the conversation toward civility. "They are what keep peace here." But Silara only chuckled. "Peace or control? I see now, your laws are nothing but a tool to keep you weak." She turned away, dismissing him as though he were nothing more than an insignificant speck in the grand cosmos. Ethan stood still, holding his composure, but beneath the calm exterior, he was troubled. Silara wasn't just here to negotiate. She was here to test humanity, to mock it, to see if they were truly worthy of standing on equal ground with her. It was clear she didn't understand or care about the true power of human resolve. But Ethan wasn't about to back down. He had a plan, a human plan, one that would show Silara that no one, no matter how powerful, could ignore the weight of human law for long. He would make her understand, whether she liked it or not. The next day, Earth's leaders gathered at a grand hall in the capital. It was a place meant for peace, for diplomacy, for showing strength and unity. They expected a formal, respectful exchange with the alien princess, hoping to gain an ally in the vast galaxy. But as the doors opened and Princess Silara walked in, all eyes turned to her, and the room fell silent. She wore her royal attire, a shimmering black and silver armor that clung to her form like a second skin. Her long, dark hair flowed freely down her back, and her piercing eyes scanned the room with cool disdain. She made no effort to hide her contempt for the human establishment. In fact, she seemed to delight in it. Ethan stood at the front, along with a small group of high-ranking officials. As she approached, he stepped forward with his customary grace and introduced himself. Princess Xylara, we are honored to have you here. Earth has long awaited this moment. Xylara glanced at him for a second, then turned her gaze to the other officials. Indeed, she said with a slight, almost mocking, smile, I see that Earth's officials are as rigid and formal as I imagined. You all still cling to your archaic laws and systems. How quaint. Her voice was laced with sarcasm, and the way she looked down on them made it clear she thought little of the humans before her. Ethan remained calm, keeping his voice steady as he responded. Human laws may seem simple to you, Princess, but they've kept peace on this planet for centuries. We're committed to working with your people on terms of mutual respect. Mutual respect, she repeated, her tone dripping with disbelief. You expect me to respect the whims of a species that can't even get its own house in order. Your peace is fragile, like a house of cards. You can't possibly believe you have any power in the galaxy. Her words stung, but Ethan kept his composure. He knew this wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. Xylara had come to test them, to see if humanity was truly capable of holding its own in a galactic community, and it seemed she was determined to show that she didn't see Earth as anything more than a weak planet, not even worthy of respect. Xylara stepped up to the podium, ignoring the formalities of the meeting and addressing the gathered leaders with a chilling confidence. I do not see any reason why I should follow your laws or accept your treaties. My people have crushed civilizations far grander than yours. Your laws are mere suggestions to those with real power. She paused, letting her words sink in. The room went quiet, but Ethan could feel the tension rising. He could see the faces of the other diplomats, their pride stung by Xylara's cruel remarks. This was no longer just a conversation about alliances. This was an attack on humanity's very identity. Xylara smiled, as if enjoying the discomfort she had caused. I am not here to negotiate terms like some lesser dignitary. I have nothing to gain from the likes of you. I came here to show you who rules the stars. Ethan's grip tightened on the edge of the podium. He had anticipated arrogance, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. He could feel the weight of the situation. Earth was being mocked by a powerful alien princess, and if this continued, their chance at forming any sort of alliance would vanish in a blink. I will not let Earth be treated this way, he thought. The thought raced through his mind, and something inside him stirred. He knew what he had to do next. The time for words was over. He would have to show Xylara that there were limits to her power, limits she hadn't yet realized. With a calm breath, he stood tall, his voice firm as he spoke. Princess Xylara, perhaps it's time you learned the true weight of human law. It's not something to be dismissed lightly. You may think your power is absolute, but it is not above the law. Xylara raised an eyebrow at him, intrigued by his sudden shift in tone. Is that a threat, human? She asked, her voice cold, but a spark of curiosity flickered in her eyes. Ethan didn't flinch. No, princess. This is a statement of fact. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sealed document, one that he had been given only hours before the meeting began. The Galactic Federation's order. The one document that could change everything. He held it in his hand, knowing that what happened next could either break or solidify his career as a diplomat. But he had no choice. He had to show her what true power meant. The room grew still as Ethan stepped forward and placed the document on the table. The Federation's seal gleamed in the dim light. Xylara eyed it with interest, her earlier arrogance replaced with a flicker of uncertainty. Open it, Ethan said quietly, his voice steady. The challenge had been laid. Xylara's mocking smile faded as she took the document. The moment of truth was about to begin. Xylara looked at the document Ethan had placed before her with growing suspicion. The glossy seal of the Galactic Federation shimmered under the lights of the room. Her eyes narrowed as she took the paper into her hands, slowly unsealing it. She had never seen a document quite like this one. Humans were known for their creativity, but this was something else entirely. The princess felt a chill run down her spine as she opened it, her gaze flickering to the first words printed in bold across the top. By the decree of the Galactic Federation, all visitors to Earth must adhere to its laws, customs, and legal structures. For a moment, there was silence. Silara read the words again, her fingers gripping the edges of the document. It was official, binding. This was no trivial note or meaningless formality. This was a law from a governing body much larger than anything she had ever seen. The realization hit her. Earth wasn't as small as she had imagined. Ethan stood across the table, watching her closely. He knew this was the moment that could either make or break this encounter. Silara, still silent, scanned the rest of the paper. It detailed the consequences of violating Earth's laws while on its soil, warnings, sanctions, and most damning of all, the potential expulsion from the Federation itself. The princess lifted her gaze to meet his, her eyes cold but now with a hint of something else. Uncertainty. "What do you expect me to do with this?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You believe that I, a princess of the Draka Dominion, should submit to your laws?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I believe that the laws of the Galactic Federation apply to all its members, regardless of their rank or heritage. Even you, princess, are bound by them while on Earth." Silara's lips curled into a sly smile. "I see. You think this document will make me bow to your will, don't you?" Her voice was full of arrogance, but beneath the bravado, Ethan could see the wheels turning in her mind. She had expected to sweep through Earth's laws with ease, mocking them all the way. Now, for the first time, she realized she might be forced to confront them. Her eyes flicked back down to the document. A long, tense silence passed as she mulled over her next move. But Silara wasn't one to bow to anyone. Not easily, at least. She slammed the document back onto the table, her fury suddenly breaking through. "Enough," she shouted, her voice booming across the room. "You think this piece of paper means something to me. You believe your laws can control the Draka Dominion. You are weak, human." Her guards shifted nervously, unsure whether to intervene. Ethan's expression remained calm. He had expected this reaction. The princess had a sense of invincibility that came from her status, but he knew something she didn't. This wasn't about submitting to her whims. This was about showing her that the universe operated under rules, even for the powerful. "I didn't expect you to surrender immediately," Ethan replied. "But I did expect you to understand that Earth will not be disrespected. We have laws for a reason." Silara clenched her fists, frustration evident on her face. "I don't care about your laws. I will do as I please." She was about to storm out of the room when one of the human officials stepped forward, holding up a second document, this time with a red seal. "Your Highness," the official said, his voice steady but firm. "You are here on the authority of the Galactic Federation. Should you violate the terms of this agreement, your actions will be reported to the Council of Sovereigns. If that happens, you could lose much more than your diplomatic immunity." The words stung. Silara's hands trembled as she took the new document. It wasn't just a warning. It was a direct challenge to her authority. She felt something she hadn't in a long time. Fear. A human diplomat was daring to challenge her power. Her anger flared, but she held herself in check. For now, she knew she had no choice but to play the game. If only for a moment, she would have to respect Earth's rules. "I don't know who you think you are, human," Silara said, her voice quieter now, though still carrying the sharp edge. "But you have just made an enemy of the Draka Dominion." Ethan met her gaze without fear. "I'm not interested in making enemies, princess. I'm only here to ensure Earth is respected." Silara sneered, but she knew one thing for certain. This encounter was far from over. The battle of wills between her and the humans had only just begun. The tension in the room was thick, like a storm waiting to break. Silara, still holding the document in her hands, could feel her frustration building. She had never been challenged like this before. She was used to getting what she wanted, and the laws of weaker species had never held her attention. But Earth was different. The humans weren't backing down. Ethan's calm, steady voice had forced her to reconsider her position, but she wouldn't let them see how much the situation rattled her. Not yet. Ethan watched her closely, waiting for her next move. He could feel the weight of the moment. If this went wrong, it could spark a diplomatic disaster. He didn't just represent himself, he represented Earth and its people. His words would carry the power to shape the future of their relationship with the Draka Dominion. "I didn't expect you to back down so easily, Princess," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. "But I do expect you to follow the law while you're here. You may think you're above it, but that's not how things work on Earth." Silara's eyes flashed with anger. "You think this piece of paper has any real power over me?" She sneered, her voice icy. "You humans are so predictable. Laws, rules, all of it is meaningless when you're dealing with someone like me." Her words rang out in the room, but Ethan didn't flinch. He had prepared for this moment. "The Federation's order is clear, Princess. Your status doesn't exempt you. And if you think you can walk all over humanity, you're mistaken." Silara took a step closer to him, her gaze intense. Her height and commanding presence made her an imposing figure, and she knew it. "And what will you do, human? What will you do if I choose to ignore your laws?" she demanded, her voice daring him to respond. Ethan stood tall, his expression unyielding. "Then the consequences will fall on you. The Federation will take action, and your reputation will be shattered. You won't be able to go anywhere without facing the repercussions." Silara paused, as though weighing his words. She had never truly considered the possibility that someone might challenge her authority in such a direct manner. It was a bitter pill to swallow, and for a brief moment, she wasn't sure how to proceed. She was a princess, accustomed to respect, admiration, and power. The idea that a human could hold power over her was almost laughable, yet here she was, facing a real threat to her position. Her pride burned in her chest, but she couldn't deny the truth in Ethan's words. The Galactic Federation was not something she could simply dismiss. Her family's power in the galaxy, though vast, could not shield her from the consequences of defying the Federation's rules. It would be a mistake to underestimate them. "You are bold, human," she said finally, her tone quieter now, though still edged with pride. "I will give you that. But make no mistake. This doesn't end here. You may have forced me to acknowledge your laws today, but I will remember this." Ethan nodded, his tone resolute. "I didn't do this to humiliate you, Princess. I did it because Earth deserves respect. We're not here to be trampled on." Silara's gaze softened for just a moment, but only for a moment. "You think you've won," she said, almost as if speaking to herself. "But you haven't seen the full extent of what the Draka Dominion is capable of." Ethan wasn't about to be intimidated. He had come too far to back down now. "Maybe not," he replied. "But today, it's Earth that stands tall. And that's a message I want you to remember." The princess turned away, her guards closing in behind her. "We will see if your laws can protect you when the time comes, human. The galaxy is not as kind as you think." With that, she made her way toward the door, her steps deliberate, each one echoing through the quiet room. Ethan watched her leave, his heart still racing. This had been the most dangerous moment of his career, but he had held firm. For now, Earth had stood its ground. As the door closed behind her, Ethan allowed himself a moment of relief. But he knew that this was just the beginning. There was still so much more to come. The Draka Dominion was not easily deterred, and Silara would not forget this encounter. But if humanity was to survive and thrive in the galaxy, they had to make sure their strength was recognized. And for that, they had to keep fighting. Silara paced in her quarters, her thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She had never been so openly challenged, not even by the most powerful leaders of the galaxy. Earth had stood firm against her, a species she had thought little of. The document that Ethan had shown her, the decree from the Galactic Federation, was still fresh in her mind. It wasn't just some insignificant piece of paper. It was a reminder of the reality she had been trying to ignore. Earth was no longer a small, insignificant planet. The Federation had made it clear that humanity had its place in the galaxy, and it wasn't one to be dismissed lightly. Her pride, however, burned fiercely. The Draka Dominion had conquered countless civilizations, and yet she had been brought to her knees by human laws. The idea that her actions on Earth could lead to her downfall was something she couldn't accept. She had to regain control, to show Ethan and the others that she was still a force to be reckoned with. But there was a problem. Her people, her empire, weren't above the Galactic Federation. The Federation's law applied to all its members, no matter how powerful they were. And Silera knew that if she disregarded it completely, she would risk not just her standing on Earth, but her position in the galactic community. The Federation had too much influence, and her actions would have consequences far beyond Earth's borders. There was a knock at the door, pulling her out of her thoughts. One of her most trusted advisors, Lord Kale, entered the room. His expression was serious, and he didn't waste any time with pleasantries. "Your Highness," he began, his voice calm but firm. "I have reviewed the Federation's decree. The human diplomat, Ethan, was not lying. If you continue to defy their laws, the consequences will be grave. The Federation has the power to revoke your privileges and even exile you from Earth." Silara's eyes flashed with anger, but she quickly masked it with a composed expression. "I know what the Federation can do," she replied sharply, "but I will not be cowed by a human diplomat and his pathetic laws." Lord Kale raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension in her voice. "Then you are willing to risk everything for the sake of pride?" Silera froze. Her eyes softened for a moment, but the pride within her never wavered. "I do not back down from anyone, not even the Federation." Lord Kale sighed, stepping closer. "I understand your anger, but you must also understand the weight of your position. Your actions affect not only you, but the entire Dominion. If you continue on this path, the consequences will ripple through the galaxy. The Federation will not tolerate disrespect." Silara's jaw tightened, and she turned away, looking out of the window at the sprawling city below. The stars seemed so distant, so unreachable. She had always believed that her lineage, her power, was enough to shield her from any threat. But now, for the first time, she felt vulnerable. "What do you suggest I do?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Lord Kale hesitated. "The best course of action would be to comply with their laws for now, Your Highness. It may be a temporary solution, but it will allow you to regain control of the situation. Once the humans see that you respect their laws, you can use that to your advantage. They value respect above all else." Silera turned back to him, her gaze sharp. "So, you want me to play their game? To bow down to their rules just to keep my position?" "It's not about bowing down, Your Highness," Kale said. "It's about playing the long game. If you act too rashly now, you risk everything. But if you show restraint, you'll regain the upper hand." Silera closed her eyes, thinking over his words. She had always prided herself on her strength, on the power of her people. But strength wasn't always about fighting. It was about knowing when to act and when to hold back. The Federation's decree had thrown her off balance, but perhaps it wasn't a defeat. Maybe, just maybe, it was an opportunity to show that even a princess of the Draka Dominion could adapt. With a sigh, she nodded. "Fine. For now, I will play by their rules. But make no mistake, I will never forget this humiliation." Lord Kale bowed his head, relieved that she had seen reason. "As you wish, Your Highness." Silera stared out at the stars again, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. Earth had won this round, but the game was far from over. She would return to her people, and she would make sure they understood that even a setback could be used as a stepping stone for greater power. She was far from defeated. And the humans, well, They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The days following the meeting felt strange for Xylara. She was used to being in control, to commanding respect from all who encountered her. But now, in the quiet moments of her quarters, she couldn't escape the nagging feeling that something had shifted. The humans, particularly Ethan, had managed to do what few others could. They had made her question everything she believed about strength, power, and the laws that governed the galaxy. Her mind replayed the confrontation over and over. The document from the Galactic Federation, Ethan's unwavering stance, the way he had presented himself, calm and steady, when she had expected him to cower before her. The truth was hard to admit, but it had settled deep within her. Humanity had something she had not considered, an unshakable will to fight for what they believed in, no matter the odds. As much as she hated to acknowledge it, Earth was not just a small, insignificant planet. The humans had managed to carve out a place for themselves in the vast expanse of space, and they were not to be underestimated. Her people had always seen Earth as a stepping stone, a place to test their strength and prove their dominance. But now, Xylara was forced to admit that Earth had its own strength, a quiet strength that came from laws, from principles that seemed simple, yet were unbreakable. Sitting by the large window in her room, she gazed out at the sprawling city below. The humans had built something impressive, something resilient. The thought of their laws, simple as they may seem, filled her with a strange sense of respect. They were not like the complex systems of the Draka Dominion, where power was held by birthright and force. No, the human strength was in their unity, in their adherence to something greater than themselves. She knew she could not ignore the truth any longer. The Federation's decree wasn't just a legal formality. It was the foundation of human power. They had created a system where even the mightiest of beings could not simply trample over others. It was humbling, in a way. For the first time in a long while, Xylara felt a weight on her shoulders. She had been wrong about Earth. She had been wrong about their laws. A knock on the door broke her thoughts. "Enter," she called out, her voice steady, but not as sharp as before. Lord Kale stepped into the room, his face serious. "Your Highness," he began, "I've received word from the Federation's legal council. They have confirmed that Earth has full jurisdiction over its laws, and they are prepared to back them up. If you choose to defy them, there will be no escape from the consequences." Xylara sighed deeply. She had expected this. The Federation's grip on the galaxy was far stronger than she had given them credit for. She had underestimated the humans, and now she was paying the price. "I understand," she said quietly, though the words felt like a bitter pill. "But I will not be humiliated. I will follow their laws, for now." Kale looked at her, his eyes searching. "You are making the right choice, Your Highness. Humility in this moment will only make your future stronger. We can turn this around." Xylara turned away from him, her eyes focused on the horizon. "I'm not sure I know how to turn this around," she murmured. "I've always believed that power came from strength, from force. But these humans, they've shown me that power can come from something entirely different. They value their laws more than their military might. They believe in something greater." Lord Kale bowed his head in understanding. "It is a rare thing, Your Highness, but it is what makes them strong. They will respect you if you show respect in return." Xylara took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. The respect she had so easily dismissed was now a key to unlocking something much greater. She would never forget the lesson she had learned on Earth. Her next move would be different. She would play the game on their terms, but she would do it in a way that would turn the tables in her favor. "I will make them respect me," Xylara said, her voice more resolute than before. "But not through force. I will make them see my power in a different way." Lord Kale gave a slight nod. "And I will be here, ready to support you, as always." Xylara smiled faintly, a new plan forming in her mind. It wasn't over yet. She would play the long game, using their own rules against them. But this time, she would do it with the knowledge that human laws weren't to be ignored. They were to be understood, respected, and then, perhaps, used to her advantage. For the first time, she truly understood the power of Earth's resolve, and it was something she would never take lightly again. The next day, Earth's leaders gathered in the same grand hall where the first confrontation had taken place. This time, however, the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of anticipation hanging in the air, a quiet tension that rippled through the room. It was no longer just a diplomatic meeting. It was a test. Sci-Fi stood at the front, flanked by her guards. She was dressed in her royal armor, her posture commanding and regal as ever. Yet there was something different about her. Her earlier arrogance had softened, replaced by a quiet determination. She had come to respect the strength of Earth's resolve, but she had no intention of letting that stop her. She was here to prove that the Draka dominions could never be fully controlled, especially not by the humans. Ethan Waller stood nearby, his eyes fixed on the princess. He had prepared for this moment. He knew that Sci-Fi was not the type to back down easily, but he also knew that he could not let her get the better of him. The stakes were too high. Earth's future depended on this fragile diplomacy. If they failed now, it could spell disaster. "Princess Sci-Fi," Ethan said, stepping forward. His voice was calm, steady. "You've made it clear that you do not respect Earth's laws, but I believe we can find a way to prove to you that we are not to be dismissed. A test, if you will." Sci-Fi's sharp eyes flickered over him, her expression unreadable. "A test?" she asked, her voice cold but intrigued. "What kind of test?" Ethan smiled, though his eyes never left her. "A test of strength, both mental and physical. A challenge to show that we are capable of holding our own, not just as individuals, but as a species." Sci-Fi's lips curled into a smirk. She had expected Earth's challenge to come in the form of some intellectual argument, a diplomatic negotiation. But this was different. She could see that Ethan was not playing by the same rules as before. He wasn't asking for her respect anymore. He was demanding it. "Very well, human," she said, her voice dripping with both curiosity and challenge. "If this is what you think will earn my respect, then I accept." Ethan nodded, motioning toward a large, circular arena at the center of the hall. It was a place where Earth's greatest warriors and athletes tested their skills, a neutral ground for challenges of all kinds. The crowd was silent as both sides prepared for what was to come. Sci-Fi's guards took their positions, ready to intervene if necessary, but Sci-Fi dismissed them with a wave of her hand. She was confident, too confident. She believed that her strength, both physical and mental, was beyond any human's ability to overcome. Ethan stepped into the arena first, standing tall in the center. He didn't wear armor or weapons. He was dressed simply, but his posture and focus were sharp. He would face Sci-Fi on his terms, and he wouldn't rely on brute force. Instead, he would show her something more powerful, the strength of human resolve, of strategy, and of unity. Sci-Fi followed him, her steps echoing in the arena as she circled him, sizing him up. "You really believe you can match my strength?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "I believe that strength isn't just about power," Ethan said, meeting her gaze with unwavering confidence. "It's about knowing when to fight and when to think. Humanity has survived because we understand that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the mind, not the body." Sci-Fi raised an eyebrow. She had heard stories of human ingenuity, but she had never seen it put to the test like this. "Then show me, human. Show me this strength of yours." The test began, not with a clash of weapons or fists, but with a series of mental challenges, puzzles and riddles that required strategy, logic, and quick thinking. At first, Sci-Fi was confident. She breezed through the puzzles with ease, her sharp mind quickly solving each one. But Ethan wasn't far behind. He watched her every move, analyzing her patterns, waiting for the moment when he could strike. And then, in the final challenge, the tables turned. The puzzle was one of patience, a task that required both focus and restraint. It was a test of strategy, not strength. Silara's impatience began to show. Her frustration grew as she tried to solve the puzzle faster than her mind allowed. Ethan, however, remained calm, his methodical approach keeping him one step ahead. Finally, with a quiet breath, Ethan completed the task. He had won, not through physical strength, but through a mental strategy that proved humanity's greatest strength, their ability to think, adapt, and persevere. Silara stared at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. "You were right," she said, her voice softer than before. "I underestimated you. I see now that there is more to Earth's strength than I realized." Ethan met her gaze, his expression resolute. Humanity's strength is not in its might. The silence that followed the challenge was thick and heavy. The room, once filled with murmurs and expectations, now held an air of stunned disbelief. Ethan stood tall in the center of the arena, his expression calm, but inside, his heart raced. He had won, not through sheer force or overwhelming power, but through human ingenuity, patience, and strategy. Silara, on the other hand, stood still, her sharp gaze locked on him. Her usual confidence shattered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The crowd, a mix of humans and aliens, waited with bated breath to see how the alien princess would respond. Ethan's mind was still processing the victory, but he kept his focus. This wasn't just about winning a game. It was about proving to Silara and to the galaxy that humanity's strength wasn't limited to physical might. Silara's eyes, once full of arrogance and disdain, now reflected something different, something close to respect. She had underestimated Earth's ability to challenge her, and now she stood before Ethan, acknowledging the truth of his victory. It wasn't just the puzzle that had been at stake. It was the very idea that Earth had the power to stand on equal footing with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Slowly, Silara stepped forward. "You," she began, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "You beat me." Ethan nodded, but he didn't let his guard down. This moment wasn't just about one challenge. It was about setting the tone for their future interactions. "It's not about winning or losing, Princess," he said, his voice steady. "It's about understanding that strength isn't only found in force. Sometimes, the greatest strength is in knowing how to think, how to adapt." Silara's lips curled into a faint smile, a smile that was less mocking and more genuine than anything she had shown before. "I see that now," she said, her voice carrying an edge of reluctant admiration. "I've always believed that power came from my strength, my royal blood. But you humans, you don't need to rely on bloodlines or military might. You've found your own strength, and that is something I didn't expect." The princess paused for a moment, her eyes searching Ethan's face. "You've proven that Earth isn't as weak as I thought. You've proven that your species deserves respect." Ethan gave a small nod, but his words were measured. "Respect isn't given, Princess. It's earned. We've had to fight for everything we've built, our survival, our place in this galaxy, and we'll continue to fight for it." Silara's gaze softened, her pride still intact but tempered by a new understanding. "Perhaps I have much to learn about your people," she said quietly. "I have been blind, believing that power could only come from domination. I see now that there's strength in unity, in laws, in the will to survive." Ethan met her gaze, his expression unyielding. "That's why we're still here. Earth has had to survive through so many challenges, and we've done it together, as a people. Not through war, not through conquest, but through our will to adapt, to grow stronger." The princess looked around the room, her eyes flickering over the humans and the diplomats who watched them. The atmosphere was changing. What had started as a tense standoff was now evolving into something different, something that could reshape the future of human-alien relations. "I've seen what you are capable of, human," Silara said, her voice steady now. "And I admit, Earth has earned my respect." Ethan's expression softened, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. "Thank you, Princess. That means more than you realize." As Silara turned to leave the arena, Her demeanor had changed. She was no longer the arrogant princess who had come to Earth expecting to dominate and mock. Instead, she was someone who understood the value of respect, something she had never truly understood before. Her journey on Earth wasn't over, but this moment marked a turning point. The respect she had once mocked had now become something she was beginning to value. And in that moment, Ethan knew that this victory, though small, was something Earth could build upon. It was the first step toward a future where humanity wasn't just a footnote in the galaxy. It was a force to be reckoned with. The days after the challenge passed quickly, and the atmosphere around the Earth capital was one of quiet anticipation. Silara, the alien princess, had left the grand arena, but she had not disappeared from the minds of the humans who had witnessed the spectacle. The diplomatic world was buzzing with questions. What would happen next? Could this fragile peace hold? And most importantly, had Silara truly changed her view of humanity? Ethan Waller couldn't stop thinking about it. The victory had been significant, but there was still a long road ahead. It wasn't just about winning a challenge. It was about the future of Earth's place in the galaxy. And for that, they needed Silara's cooperation, not just her respect. Days passed, and Ethan's meetings continued, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the princess. What had she been thinking? Was she truly humbled by the test, or was this just another moment of temporary recognition? Despite his calm exterior, he couldn't shake the feeling that the most important conversation was yet to come. It was late in the evening when Ethan received word that Silara wished to meet with him again. The message was simple but clear. "I need to speak with you, human." With a quiet sigh, Ethan made his way to the designated meeting room, his mind racing with possibilities. The princess had been a challenge from the start, but perhaps now there was a chance to build something more, a relationship built not on pride or power, but on mutual respect. When he entered the room, Silara was standing by the window, her back to him. The soft hum of the city outside filled the space between them. For a moment, she did not turn around, and the silence stretched on, thick and uncomfortable. "Princess Silara," Ethan began, his voice steady but with an edge of curiosity. "You asked to see me. What's on your mind?" Silara's voice, when she finally spoke, was softer than he expected. "I've been thinking about everything that has happened, about Earth, about you." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "And I realize now that I have been wrong." Ethan blinked, surprised. "Wrong?" She nodded, her eyes steady as she looked at him. "Yes, wrong. I came here thinking that humans were weak, that your laws and customs were nothing more than a fragile veil. I thought you would fall at my feet when I showed you my power. But you didn't. You stood tall. You stood firm." Silara paused, taking a breath. "I mocked you. I insulted your people. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand that your strength isn't in your power, but in your resilience, in your ability to hold on, even when the odds are against you. I was wrong to dismiss that." Ethan didn't speak at first. He let her words sink in, his mind processing the shift in her attitude. The Silara he had faced before was a distant, almost unreachable figure. But now she stood before him, not as a ruler from a distant empire, but as someone who had learned something, however reluctantly. "I owe you an apology," she said, her voice quieter now, more sincere. "And I owe your people an apology. I disrespected everything you stand for, and for that, I am truly sorry." The apology hung in the air between them, and for a long moment, Ethan simply stood there, taking it all in. This was no small gesture. The princess had come to Earth with nothing but pride and arrogance, and now she was acknowledging her mistakes. It was a rare thing for someone like her to admit fault. "Thank you, Princess," Ethan replied, his voice soft. "Your apology means more than you know. But this is more than about winning or losing. It's about understanding each other, finding common ground where we can build something better. We're all still learning, humans included. We're not perfect, but we are resilient." Silara gave a faint smile, a hint of something new in her eyes. Respect, perhaps, or a deeper understanding. Perhaps there's more to your species than I gave you credit for. Perhaps we could work together, not just for my people, but for yours as well. Ethan nodded slowly. I think that's a good place to start. For the first time since their meeting began, Solara stepped forward, extending her hand. Let us start over then, as equals. I'm willing to listen, and I hope, in time, that I can prove to you that I am not the enemy. Ethan hesitated for a moment before taking her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of something more. It was the beginning of a new relationship, one built not on the old ideas of dominance and submission, but on cooperation, respect, and the shared desire to move forward. As their handshake lingered, Ethan couldn't help but think that this moment, this small step, was something far greater than either of them realized. The galaxy was vast, and the future uncertain. But for the first time, there was hope that Earth's place in it could be more than just survival. It could be about thriving. The days that followed Solara's apology were filled with discussions, planning, and the slow, steady building of trust between the humans and the Draka Dominion. What had started as a tense, uncertain meeting had now evolved into something unexpected. A potential partnership, forged from mutual respect and understanding. Ethan Waller had always believed in the power of diplomacy, but even he couldn't have predicted how quickly things would change. The princess, once a symbol of haughty arrogance, now stood by his side, not as an enemy, but as a potential ally. There was still much to be done, but for the first time, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope for the future. Solara, too, had changed in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had come to Earth thinking it would be easy, an opportunity to prove the superiority of her people. Instead, she had been humbled, not by force or power, but by the strength of human resolve and the unbreakable spirit that held Earth together. It was a lesson she would not soon forget. As they sat in the grand conference room, Ethan and Solara reviewed the terms of the new treaty. Earth's representatives had worked tirelessly to create an agreement that would benefit both sides, an agreement that recognized the power of the Draka Dominion, but also respected Earth's sovereignty and laws. Solara looked over the treaty one last time. She could see that it was fair, that it respected her people's needs while acknowledging the importance of cooperation with humanity. The human laws she had once mocked now seemed like a foundation to build upon. There was no need for brute force when you could create something stronger through understanding. Your people have been through much, Solara said, her voice soft but serious. I see now that you do not need to conquer the galaxy to make a place for yourselves. You've already done that, through your laws, your will to survive, and your unity. Ethan nodded. We've had to fight for everything we have, but we've learned that strength comes in many forms. We don't always win with weapons or force. Sometimes it's the quiet strength of sticking together, of believing in something bigger than ourselves. Solara met his gaze, a new respect in her eyes. It's strange, she admitted, but I've come to realize that your strength is not just in your fighting spirit, but in your hearts, in the way you choose to live, even when the odds are against you. For a moment, there was silence between them. Neither of them spoke, but the weight of the moment was felt by both. This wasn't just about a treaty. It was about something deeper, something that had changed within both of them. What had once been a battlefield of pride had turned into a place of potential, where two species could learn from one another and grow stronger together. The door to the room opened, and Earth's diplomats filed in. The treaty was ready. The words of peace had been written. But more than that, the respect between Solara and the humans had been earned. It was something that couldn't be written on paper, something that neither side had expected. Ethan stood and extended his hand to Solara. Shall we make this official? He asked, his voice steady. Solara took his hand, her grip firm but with a quiet understanding behind it. Yes, she said. Let's begin this new chapter together. The room erupted in applause as the treaty was signed, marking the beginning of a new alliance between Earth and the Draka Dominion. But for Ethan and Celara, the true victory was not in the papers, but in the understanding they had forged, a victory of respect, of strength, and of a future that was no longer defined by division, but by cooperation. As they walked out of the room, side by side, there was a sense of something new in the air. It wasn't just the beginning of a treaty. It was the beginning of a partnership that would change the course of history for both Earth and the galaxy. And for the first time, both Ethan and Celara knew they had a part to play in shaping that future.